You're listening to JetNation Radio, the official podcast of JetNation.com, the largest independent fan site in the NFL. Be sure to check out our forums and talk all things Jets with thousands of other diehard Jets fans. Now, to get you up to date on all the latest Jets news, notes, and quotes, here are your hosts, Naughton and Alex Varallo.
Good evening, Jets fans. I am Naughton. This is JetNation Radio, joined as always by my co-host, Alex Varallo. Alex, how you doing, bud?
Doing well. The tank lives on, my friend, and we are here to deliver another excellent episode on JetNation Radio for all our listeners that just can't leave this team behind. We are here again for you.
Yeah, so I saw somebody say today, if Trevor Lawrence, the Jets end up with this first pick and they get Trevor Lawrence, and things don't work out, then that's it. Like they're done being a fan. And I just thought I said the same exact thing when they got Sam Darnold. I was like, if this guy's not the franchise quarterback, I'm never watching this team again. But here I am, and again, I'm among those that feels like Sam Darnold is going to land somewhere like Pittsburgh or New Orleans, and he's going to be absolutely fine. He's going to, that's another discussion for another time. Stuff I wanted to touch on this week, Alex, of course, the loss to San Diego, 0-10, officially the single worst start for the New York Jets. Even under Rich Kotite, they were not this bad. And I think, at least to me, that's been obvious for a couple months now that this is a worse situation than they had under Kotite. There are those who disagree, but the numbers speak for themselves. There were a few encouraging signs in this game, and this is kind of, as a lot of people have said, these are kind of the perfect scenarios. This is what you want to see. When you want that first pick, when you want Trevor Lawrence, it's no fun watching 38-3 blowouts. Like, watching a loss is no fun anyway, but it's like, Jesus, give me something positive that I can hang on to going into next year. And now the last couple of weeks, we've seen that. We've seen the receivers start making plays, namely Breshard Perriman, Denzel Mims getting into the mix now, and he was absolutely fantastic the other night. If not for a few pass interference calls, he would have had a huge night. The defense, Quinnen Williams, to me, had another fantastic game. I went back and rewatched the All-22. I counted, it's splitting hairs. I counted 8 quarterback pressures for Quinnen Williams. I looked at PFF. They had him down for 7. He did have a half a sack. And Alex, listen, this game, as is often the case, but I felt like that first drive was the best the Jets offensive line has looked all year. I mean, they were just steamrolling San Diego in the run game. Everybody was getting involved. I mean, obviously you got Becton, but Lewis made some nice blocks. Van Roten's been better of late anyway. He was all right. I mean, basically, they really were bullying the Chargers around up front. And you kind of had a feeling like it's probably not going to last because, teams come out fired up and they eventually settle down, which the Jets did, but still averaged a respectable 4.1 a carry between LaMichael Pirine and Frank Gore, each of whom scored a touchdown. So really the trenches, Alex, on both sides of the ball, I thought the defensive line and the linebackers too, I thought they did a pretty damn good job of getting pressure, of shutting down the run. I think Kalen Ballage was under 2 yards to carry. Quinnen Williams with his 7 pressures. I think Jordan Jenkins had 5. Henry Anderson, easily his best game of the year. John Franklin Myers continued to impress up front. Foley Fatukasi made some plays. And this to me is the saving grace, so to speak. Like, you got to have something, as I just said, you got to have something to build upon, to look forward to next year. Like, you can't just go into a year and feeling like there is absolutely nothing in place to build around. But that's really not the case with the Jets. That front 7 has the ability to be pretty good, even without Jenkins and Anderson, who will be gone after this season. But also the receivers. When Trevor Lawrence gets here, he's not going to be in Sam Darnold's situation. He's not going to be thrown to undrafted, unproven B-list guys that no other team wanted. He's going to have Mims. He's going to have Crowder. And that one of the things I wanted to discuss is, will he have Perriman? Perriman came here on a 1-year deal. And let's start with your thoughts on how they looked up front, and then we'll get to Perriman and who should stay and who should go and things like that. But what did you think of the defensive line, Alex? What do you think of the offensive line? Were you as impressed by them as I was?
I'm half and half on the scenario here. I didn't think they played very well in the first quarter. They had the opening drive, but like you said, Jets got a little bit of luck on their side with some passing interference calls and things like that to help them move the ball. But they were kind of flat after that first drive. I mean, they didn't score any more points until the third quarter. So this was one of the scenarios where in recent weeks we've seen the team come out looking good with the scripted plays in the first half and then not really doing too much in the second half. This was the complete opposite. The Jets came out slow in the first half, and then they picked up the pace in the second half, kind of like what you and I alluded to, that the Los Angeles Chargers, have just been one of those teams that cannot close out the game. And they constantly blow leads in the fourth quarter, and it almost looked that way because the Jets just kept chipping away, and they just kept, putting points on the board, and, San Diego kind of, I said it again, the Chargers just went ahead and put it in neutral, and, forgive me for my goof. We'll have to put that on the bloopers. But you can totally see that, this is the reason why the Chargers have struggled this year because they don't close out games strong. And it was just kind of odd to see the Jets playing better in the second half compared to, their, I wouldn't say hot starts in the beginning, but they looked like a formidable football team in the first half for the last few weeks. This past week, had they had a better first half, if they were able to, limit their turnovers and get some things going in the first half, we could have easily won this game, I feel. But, we're still a struggling football team, and we had some lineup changes at the offensive line again. Connor McDermott had to come in for a little bit, and, we just can't seem to get 5 of the same offensive players at any given Sunday anymore. So that's something that maybe Joe Douglas was going to have to look at next offseason, is not just finding talent at the offensive line, but finding players that are durable and can withstand a 16, 17-week schedule. That's a big factor. We need to find players that have proven that they could stay healthy on the field. Now to go over to the defensive side, Quinnen Williams and John Franklin Myers looked pretty good. I would definitely like to see those two guys being our future defensive ends for this defense, whomever the coordinator may be. We're not going to be able to speculate right now on what the future holds, but I really like how certain players are really starting to develop. Pularanzo Fatukasi still doing his thing in the trenches. And even the corners that went up against one of the best wide receivers in the league, Keenan Allen, even though he had a career day and had, 15 or 16 receptions, there were times in which these young rookies played quite well. So, like you said, it's not all just, doom and gloom. There are some young players, selectively around this team that show some promise at this point. So I came away pretty content, with the fact that we looked better in the second half. The tank is still alive for all the Trevor Lawrence tankathon fans out there. And, Joe Flacco just continues to show that take your shots when you get them. And what do you got to lose at this point in the season? The Jets should not be playing conservative at all. At this point, open up the playbook and let's let it rip and let's see what happens.
Yeah, and what were your thoughts, Alex? I thought this was funny because Rich Cimini brought it up to Adam Gase after the game. This is something I tweeted out, I think, 3 weeks ago. Whatever the second week under where the offense was supposedly being called by Dow Logans. And I sent out this tweet where Adam Gase was clearly between plays staring at his play sheet and talking into his headset. And I said, I thought Dow was calling the plays. So it took 3 weeks, but apparently the media noticed it yesterday. And Rich Cimini asked Adam Gase about it. And Gase basically said, yeah, Dowell's calling the plays, but first he tells me the play, and then I call it in, and I have the ability to veto the play. So really what's happening is Adam Gase is letting Dowell Logains suggest plays to him, and if he likes it, he'll run it, and if he doesn't, he'll call what he wants. So Adam Gase is still calling the offense, which, to be fair, has performed better of late. But Gase still insists that he's not calling the plays. This reminds me of when my wife and I were talking about getting a dog for our kids. You know, we wanted to let the kids feel like they named the dog. So we were going to pick out like 5 names that we thought were acceptable and tell them they could pick the dog's name, but it had to be one of these. So that way the kids get a pat on the head. Oh, you picked a really good name, but you didn't really pick the name. Hell, it's almost like a presidential election. You can tell people they get to pick the candidate, but you tell them who they can vote for. You know, you're like, oh, you can vote for whoever you want, but it's going to be one of these two, whether you like it or not. And I'm not making it a partisan thing. I don't care which side. I'm just saying It's where you tell people that they're involved in making a choice, but really the decision maker is the one making that choice for you. So Adam Gase seemed to get a little antsy about that. I don't think he liked it. Cimini caught him on that. What's the big deal, Rich? What's the big deal? He tells me to play a call and it's not that hard. Who cares, Rich? Well, you care if you're telling people that Dowell Logains is calling the plays. So now we know Logains suggests the play, Gase signs off on it, or he does not and calls his own if he doesn't like Dowell's call. Any thoughts on Adam Gase's enormous ego, Alex?
That's the one thing that I think I'm going to miss most about Adam is just his reactions and the way he handles the media. I think that's the only good thing that he does for this organization is that he takes on those tough questions and those, those little nitpicking topics that, Todd Bowles would give you a very lukewarm answer and just kind of mumble mouth a little bit and just not give you anything. So they just wouldn't even go there. I think the media knows that they can kind of throw these zingers at Gase and they'll get a good reaction from him. But, we were onto this, several weeks ago when we heard about the change. We're seeing, we're calling it as we see it, and we see Gase is talking to somebody, and he's still holding that clipboard in the play sheet, and he's, crossing plays out and circling things. So it's like he's talking to somebody. He's working on something over there. What exactly is the deal? So we got our answer. It's a modification to the play calling. Still has the power, as we know. And, I guess what the difference is that when you have I'm going to use a baseball reference here. We still have the same pitcher on the mound. We just have a different catcher calling the game now, if you can understand what I'm saying. And some pitchers do really, really well with, like, their guy, not necessarily the household guy. If you can understand kind of where I'm going with that. I just remember certain pitchers on the Yankees of the past where, they wouldn't have like Jorge Posada. They'd have like, Martin or whoever it was that was the backup because they worked better with
you have
that.
Flaherty. Right, but you're putting Flaherty. This is, to me, if it's a baseball analogy, you're saying you're benching Posada, John Flaherty starting behind the plate, but you're going to have Flaherty look in the dugout and check with Posada before every pitch. And Posada's going to say yes or no if you can call that. Because this is the thing. It's not the other guy is calling it. It's the other guy is checking with the main guy to see if it's okay for him to call what he wants to call. So he's really not calling it. And that's just kind of, listen, when Adam Gase said he gave up play calling, I was like, hang on a minute. First of all, the guy's he's got an ego the size of the Grand Canyon. I just don't see it happening. And then he went from, and this is something that a lot of people missed out on. If you remember, he was asked about, are you going to give up play calling? No, we talked about it as a coach, as a coaching staff. Everyone who works for me agreed that I'm brilliant and I'm going to continue calling plays. And then like 4 days later, he says, they ask him again about it after the next game. And he said, what did he say? He said, that's giving up play calling is about the 10th thing we would do. Right now we're on step 2. So he's saying that's the 10th thing they can change. They're on the second thing. And literally by that Sunday, he was like, yeah, I gave up play calling. I think he basically said, I'm tired of being asked about this. I'm way better than any of these people, so I can't be bothered with their problems. So I'm just going to tell them that Dowell is calling the plays. But Dowell, you run the plays through me, and I'll call the ones that I agree with, and I won't call the ones that I don't agree with. And that way I'm only half lying instead of just out and out lying. So that's kind of where we are with Adam Gase for what we hope will be his final 6 games as an employee in the NFL. I can't see another team hiring that maniac to work for them, but stranger things have happened. So Gase is calling the plays via Logains, who recommends them. And again, like I said, the offense has been a little bit better, so that's a positive. But we're also still seeing some idiotic stuff. Take, for example, I thought this was hilarious. Adam Gase, I don't know if you caught this, Alex. Adam Gase said the other day after the game, you said it Monday, I believe, went back and watched the film. I think Jamison Crowder, if Joe Flacco had made the right read, he left that part. Like, he never says the quarterback by name, but like what he said yesterday, he said when they asked him first about why did the receivers not have any targets in the first half, he said, well, the ball didn't go there, like as if it's up to the ball and where it goes. So what he's saying is Flacco didn't throw the ball to the receivers, which is fine. But just say what you mean. Say Joe Flacco didn't throw the ball to the receiver. Don't say the ball didn't decide to go in that direction. But then he says on Monday, after watching the film, Jamison Crowder was so open, he could have had 15 catches in the first half. Now, that's a bold statement. That means the guy is open on every single play by quite a lot, which is possible because Jamison Crowder is a good player. What's not possible, however, is to have 15 catches in the first half where you ran 8 pass plays. So it was run, couple passes mixed in. Adam Gase called 8 Dowell Logains, wink, wink, called 8 pass plays. And Adam Gase says that as a result of those 8 pass plays, if Joe Flacco had been better, Jamison Crowder would have had 15 catches, which that would have to be some kind of record, Alex. I would imagine no one's ever caught 15 balls on 8 pass attempts. So Jamison Crowder clearly playing at a very high level. But what do you think this is a Flacco thing? Do you think Joe Flacco has forgotten how to play quarterback, and that's why we saw I think Chris Herndon had 2 catches, and Ty Johnson had 1, and that was all of the catches for the Jets in the first half.
Yeah, that was just completely bizarre. I guess time of possession wasn't on their side as well during that first quarter, that first half. The Chargers clearly were just moving the ball and scoring points on us, and we just didn't really seem like we were very, very effective. I mean, yeah, you just saw lots of different, I don't know if it was execution, just more or less just things, whatever they had scripted, let's just say, wasn't a good game plan to get after this team. I think it was Flacco's first pass was a pick 6 or something crazy like that. I mean, yep. How does that happen? Just really, really bizarre, and just got onto a bad start. It really, really seems like, was just expecting things to get worse and worse as the game went on, but clearly it didn't. But I just can't put my thumb on this one here. It's been 2 weeks, and Jamison Crowder looks like he's just a non-existent factor of this team. And we've seen this with several other players in this offense to where guys just go the entire game, and it's like, are they even suiting up today? We've seen this in the past with Bell. We've seen it with Robbie. Now it's happening to Jamison. We've been talking about, where's Chris Herndon? We've been looking for him for 10 weeks, and, he finally just, shows up this past Sunday and makes a couple plays. So it's got to be a collaboration of just poor offensive scheme, play calling we know needs to improve, and, quarterback play has to be a factor in this. I kind of got a little heat from Twitter earlier critiquing Sam Darnold. And I asked somebody flat out, I said, what is the big difference between, Flacco and Darnold at this point? Oh, it's the targets. Okay, well, we don't really have great targets. I don't know why we keep, boosting this wide receiver core. Mims is looking good. Crowder is reliable out of the slot, but we know that he's had health issues throughout the years. And Perriman's been kind of, one and the same. We know that he has the ability to stretch the defense, but he's another guy that sees himself in and out of the lineup due to injuries. So, my whole thing on this is that it's a mix of inconsistent quarterback play with bad coaching and a poor game planning scheme, and then just not being able to execute what they need to do out there. I think it's a collaboration of all of those things. But as far as the Darnold and Flacco thing, and I didn't prepare you for this question, Glenn, but what is it that Flacco's doing that Darnold's not that makes this offense look so much better in your opinion?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt it's the targets, Alex. You may disagree, but go back to the New England game. That was the first time all three receivers were on the field together this year. And whether it was, and it could be just a respect thing for Flacco that Bill Belichick has that he doesn't have for Sam Darnold. But I noticed it again yesterday, and I said it during the New England game. I didn't see nearly as many all-out blitzes against Flacco the last 2 weeks in comparison to what Darnold has seen all year. I do everything I can to not give Darnold a free pass because he has made a lot of terrible decisions. But when I watch these games and I consistently see 6 blockers and 7 rushers and 7 blockers and 8 rushers and 5 blockers and 6 or 7 rushers, like there's always a free guy coming at Sam Darnold constantly. And I think defenses feel like they can do that for 2 reasons. One, Darnold hasn't proven he can beat that. But I think he hasn't proven he can beat that because he hasn't had the guys. Look, Braxton Berrios is a nice player, but he's not Crowder. Breshard Perriman, to me, the last couple of weeks, you look at the numbers he put up 2 weeks ago, then the numbers he put up this week, he was wide open down the field a couple times, and Flacco missed him. This guy, you're right in that he's battled injuries, and that's really the biggest question with him at this point because as far as I'm concerned, if you look at that late season production he had last year in Tampa, where people said, oh, was that the real guy or was that a fluke? I don't think it was a fluke anymore. We're seeing him do it here too. So I think he's a guy who's now a good enough player that you can count on to make plays down the field, and that's something defenses will have to account for. Denzel Mims on the other side, the guy he catches everything that's catchable. The only way teams have been able to stop him is to interfere, impede his progress, grab an arm, do something. And even then he's coming down with some of these balls. So, I think if Darnold is back this week, which is something that they're saying is a more realistic possibility than it was a few weeks ago, this is huge for him. Because really, you can say there's no excuses for a guy, but that's to me, sometimes that's just tough guy talk. Like any quarterback, and this has been the case with Sam Darnold the last few years. He's always sort of, the in the top 3 in terms of, how frequently he's pressured, and he rarely has good targets around him to rely on when he is pressured. So this might be these final 6 games, if Darnold is back, this might be the first time as a Jet that we see him with decent, not great, but decent pass protection and legitimate targets at 3 different spots. And, might I add, my guy, Chris Herndon, after another embarrassing drop, made 2 pretty damn good catches. One sort of overthrown over his head where he had to twist and contort himself, falling backward in the air, pull the ball in for a 26-yarder, and then a leaping fingertip grab for a touchdown late in the game. That's the Chris Herndon we saw in late in his rookie year that had us thinking he could be an up-and-coming player. So if Darnold's protection improves and Herndon has his head on straight and can start making even 3 or 4 catches a game is just enough to be accounted for, to not be a complete non-factor. If Herndon can do that, and even if he can't, let's say hypothetically Herndon just doesn't see any more, it goes back to 1 target a game. Just Perriman, Mims, and Crowder gives Darnold, and I don't think it's even close. This will be the best 1-2-3 punch Sam Darnold has had at wide receiver and the best pass protection he's had to throw. So if he comes out Sunday and teams say, all right, let's make this guy beat the blitz again, and if they blitz the hell out of him and he panics and he can't get it done, then he's done. But if he hits on a couple of throws and teams ease up on the blitzing and he gets a little more time in the pocket and they put up some numbers, now it's a different conversation. And now, fans don't want it. But, I mean, if Darnold comes out, I think the Jets right now, Alex, and I was going to touch on this at some point, if you look at it, they're kind of locked in now to the top two. The only way the Jets don't pick in the top two is if they win 3 games. I don't see them winning 3 games. But when you look at the way, Miami's offense has been pretty inconsistent. They pulled Tua the other day because he couldn't move the ball. And you look
I hope we see that Tua Sunday.
Look at the Patriots. I mean, the Jets nearly beat the Pats, and that was without Sam Darnold. But again, I mean, Flacco played excellent in that game. But as we, Bryce Hall, and we're going to cover the rookie play here in a little bit. Dylan Tereman, our Jet Nation contributor and part-time host on this program, is going to call in, and we're going to talk exclusively about the rookies with Dylan. But if Bryce Hall, I thought he played all right yesterday, considering we saw Lamar Jackson get beat on some plays, but wasn't really, he's an undrafted rookie. You don't expect great things. He was in some pretty good position, and San Diego just made some great throws. Defense keeps them in a couple games, and Sam Darnold plays the way, let's say, for example, plays the way he did late last year. I don't, you're not guaranteed the top pick anymore as far as I'm concerned. Now, a Jacksonville win against the Browns this week would be fantastic. I don't know if you knew this about the Browns, Alex. I tweeted this earlier. Their offense has been unbelievably inconsistent. They have scored 10 points or less in 3 of their last 5 games. And but the games where they didn't score 10 or less, they scored 37 and 22. So the Browns are a boomer-bust offense. Now they're going to be without Myles Garrett this week. So maybe, Jacksonville's got to pull off a damn win somewhere and give us some breathing room. And for my money, Alex, honestly, if the Jets are going to win a single game this year, I want it to be Seattle. I want them to beat Seattle. And then when they come out after the game, I just want Sam Darnold, or I don't care who. I want them to say, yeah, the game plan this week, all we talked about was finding Jamal in coverage and targeting him because you can't cover anybody. Like, I want that would be like, that would make, I don't know if it would make the whole season worth it. It'd be the highlight of the year. They're not going to beat Seattle, though. It's not going to happen. But, yeah, but to answer your question, yes, I think it's the targets, and I think because of the targets, teams haven't respected the Jets' downfield passing game. Now with Mims, Crowder, Perriman, and if Herndon starts coming on, then teams are going to have to respect that. You're not going to be able to just sell out and send 7-8 guys and leave those guys go ahead and leave Denzel Mims one-on-one all day with somebody and let Sam Darnold just throw jump ball after jump ball, because Denzel Mims has shown that he can catch a ball with somebody like on him. Like the DB's hand was between his hands yesterday and Mims pulled it down. So guys either interfere or he makes the catch. You want to leave him, and Perriman on the other side can beat you deep. So you want to give Darnold a bunch of one-on-one matchups. And really, that what makes the Jets a little bit dangerous, and I'm not saying it because it's the Jets. I've said this in the past. When you see these 0-8, 0-9, 0-10, 0-11 teams play, they'll have that game where they're like, you know what? Let's just throw everything out the window. We're just going to go out there and throw the ball down the damn field and see what happens. And you do that enough times, and before you know it, you put up 24 points in the first half, and teams are like, oh, my God, what's going on? So that's the answer to your question. And as far as I'm concerned, it is the receivers. Darnold has yet to play with them. This Sunday, we finally get to see Sam Darnold with his top 3 guys and some decent protection. It could get interesting if Sam Darnold pulls a couple of wins out of his hat. But as I said, Dylan Tereman is going to join us to talk a little bit about the play of the rookies this weekend, and he is on the line right now. Dylan, how you doing today, buddy?
Hey, Glenn, I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing good. So me and Alex were just talking about what we think the difference is between Joe Flacco and Sam Darnold. And actually one thing I didn't mention, Alex, just you have to acknowledge Flacco has just, regardless of the circumstances, Flacco has just been better than Darnold. one of the things he has done better, and this could be an experience thing, he's just been so much more decisive. Although yesterday he took a couple of sacks where he hesitated a little bit. But by and large, when we've seen these big plays out of Flacco, it's, snap, 2-3 steps, and just let it fly. Whereas we haven't seen a lot of that from Darnold. So these next 6 games for Sam Darnold could very well dictate the direction his career takes. Because really, if he wins, listen, if Sam Darnold plays lights out and you win 2 games, or maybe, 3 is highly unlikely. But let's say you average 28 points a game over the final 6 games of the year. Then you go, you know what? Turns out this kid can play. Do you then look to move on? Or do you say we're going to take Sewell with the second pick or the first pick? I don't think you do. I think you have to take Trevor Lawrence. But can Sam Darnold play well enough to make the Jets second-guess their decision, or whatever their decision-making process is at this time? Dylan Tereman, let's talk rookies. What did you think this week? Who impressed you the most? Who impressed you the least? And what was your overall take on this class? Because a whole bunch of them got a whole lot of reps.
Yeah, so just speaking back on the game itself, I thought a handful of the rookies did well. Denzel, Mims again, coming in, showing exactly why he was a second round, probably worth the end of a first round pick. I kind of wanted to compare him to the poor man DK Metcalf as far as his draft situation. He slid in the draft. Everybody thought going to be a talented wide receiver at the next level. They weren't exactly sure how. He slid to pick 59, and then you immediately see it as soon as he comes back from injury. He's had 40-plus yards receiving every game this year, and he's only caught passes in one half of all 4 of those games. For the first 3 games, he didn't have catches in the second half, and then in this game it flips around. He had a couple second-half catches, no first-half target. So, I like Denzel Mims a lot. Mekhi Becton, I don't know about you guys, but that guy's large. He moves people. On LaMichael Pirines' touchdown specifically on the first possession against the Chargers, Mekhi was engaged with a down lineman in a block, and a linebacker came rushing into the gap to come tackle Perrine, and Mekhi just stuck out his right hand. He moved back about a half a yard, but he absolutely stonewalled 2 men at the same time, and he's just a people mover. Daniel Jeremiah was on the Dan Patrick show and said that he's going to be a top 3 offensive tackle in the next few years. And barring all these minor injuries that keep kicking him out of games and, hindering him as far as his development, I think he's going to be a solid guy moving forward. And then another positive from the game I thought was Ashton Davis. He's been kind of taking on the Jamal Adams role a little bit of, the 2019 Jamal Adams. He's playing close to the line of scrimmage, right outside the box, sometimes in the box, and he's really getting after it in some of the pass rush situations. He's jamming wide receivers, tight ends, running backs that are trying to block him, and he's trading pressures on the quarterback. He had a couple hiccups in the Kansas City game, but I thought overall against the Patriots and the Chargers specifically, he was doing really well. Unfortunately, Perrine got hurt Sunday. He was starting to get going a little bit. He averaged 4.1 yards per carry, which you like to see. And then, you saw a lot of Bryce Hall. It was a little up and down. He let up a lot of yards, but he had some heads-up plays. The tackle for loss on Keenan Allen on the bubble screen right in the beginning. It was a heads-up play. So overall, you have to be slightly impressed. There's, still a handful of guys left to get on the field yet, but overall, I think it's been a positive class.
Yeah, I think one thing that worries me, and I don't know how much attention you pay to him, because this is the thing. If you want to watch this many guys this closely, you're going to have to sit down and watch the game 14 times. But one guy that I watched quite a bit of the last 2 weeks, and listen, here's the tough thing in today's NFL. Alex, we've talked about this before. We all want that instant gratification. We all want to see those results right away, even though the fan in us knows you got to give guys a couple years before they show if they can play or not. But you just want to see a little something early on. And a guy who's been hurt a lot and has had limited reps, I think he's got fewer than 50 reps. But I'll tell you what, from what I've seen of Jabari Zuniga, I've seen nothing. I haven't seen a single play where I went, ooh, okay, like that was really good. Like he's either engaged, just no explosion, not disruptive. Again, it's a little harsh, but we're kind of in a spot where we're desperate to evaluate these guys. But a guy like Zuniga, who was hurt all year, And then when he's finally healthy, he's only getting, 15, 16 reps a game. But I'm just watching and I'm waiting to see him do something. Am I nuts, or have you seen anything from him? Alex, same question to you. Have you seen anything from Zuniga that makes you feel like, because you know me, man, this was my Bryan Edwards spot. I wanted Bryan Edwards in the spot where Zuniga went, but Zuniga's here. What are your thoughts? And even as I'm asking the question, I'm acknowledging it's a little early. He didn't have a training camp. He didn't have a preseason. But at the same time, it's about, lining up against the man across from you and beating him, regardless of what level of play. And Zuniga's looked really lost early on. Alex, what are your thoughts? And then Dylan, you chime in.
Yeah, I've been wondering the same thing. He was active a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, and it really seems that, is it part of Greg Williams' scheme and his rotation? Is he the type of guy where, the more reps he gets, the longer he's in the game, the more you'll get out of him? Is he one of those guys that just doesn't react or play well, coming off cold off the bench? Just not really sure where that is. For a lot of these rookies, they're either playing undisciplined football because, they're just going, 110% and they're neglecting their responsibilities and not, playing disciplined football. Not really sure what it is with this kid. I know that Greg Williams has a lot of different personnel packages, and if you're not showing the mental aspect of the game, you can have all the physical traits in the world. We know this from Ja'Kai Polite. What we saw on film showed us a, madman coming off the corner with, really, really good acceleration coming off the line of scrimmage, someone that could penetrate the pocket and be disruptive. And then he comes into camp and he doesn't know his playbook. He's showing up late, doesn't look like he's in great shape, just not showing the mental aspect to compare with the physicality of what he brings to the field. And that's why he's not a Jet right now. I'm not trying to compare Polite to Zuniga, even though they came from the same school and everything. But for me, it just kind of seems like right now he is not up to speed with everyone else. And like you had alluded to, Glenn, the injuries and being limited and being in, a crazy 2020 year where everything has changed, it's probably much harder for a player like him being in a defensive lineman role to pop out to us fans. I mean, you'd think that he would have some opportunities with some of the other guys out there that are being effective, but at this moment, there's a lot to be desired with Zuniga.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well there, Alex. I mean, the rotation in the defense was the one thing I had written in my note. Seems like a little too undersized for the 3-4 scheme that the Jets mainly run at the core. And Greg Williams also likes to run a lot of nickel defense. So the rotation is just going to be hard for him to find a spot that actually sticks. I mean, is he an edge or is he a D lineman in a nickel or a 3-4? It's really hard to tell. He seems to be standing up mainly when he's on the field, but the ones that stand up in the nickel package are Jordan Jenkins, Terrell Basham, and then sometimes Bryce Huff. So, I mean, all three of those guys are contributing at this moment in time, so it's going to be really hard for him to actually crack a spot in this lineup. So, yeah, it's kind of tough to evaluate him from this standpoint, and I think a lot of people, like Glenn said, wanted a Bryan Edwards who, went 2 picks later to the Raiders. So that's really unfortunate there when you look at it that way. But then they also look at the Florida helmet and they see edge position and they're like, oh no, Ja'Kai Polite 2.0, which this guy is not Ja'Kai Polite. And I know a lot of people were excited about Polite coming in, but they just need to wait on Zuniga because until he finds an actual role in this defense, it's just going to be too hard to tell what he is. But, keep it going with the youth movement. Just play him, and if he can't make it happen, then you take him out, but you just won't know until you actually play him.
Yeah, and that's the thing is getting these guys the reps, getting them up to speed. As I said, tough to call. And I had a look. He's played 45 reps. I mean, that's like one game for a starter. So definitely too early to judge the guy, but there's that part of you that says, all right, once this guy gets on the field, I just want to see him make one play, like blow up one block or get to the quarterback and give you that reason to say, all right, there's something he can do. I've seen him get knocked on his back a few times, but listen, he's a year one guy who didn't have a lot of prep coming into it. Ashton Davis, I agree there. Alex, what have you thought? The Jets have clearly decided to use him, as Dylan said, in that Jamal role. We're seeing him get after the quarterback. Hasn't gotten to the quarterback yet. He did have himself a couple of pressures yesterday and also led the team, I believe, with 13 tackles, so he was all over the field. What are your thoughts on Ashton Davis at this point?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm pleasantly surprised. I had some doubts with his abilities and, coming in, being labeled as a track star and just kind of how could you fill the shoes of 33, kind of impossible. And then Marcus May kind of got moved around a little bit. I like the fact that Greg Williams has addressed the fact that Marcus May belongs as the single high safety, doing deep coverage responsibilities and orchestrating the defense, or the secondary rather, of what their roles are supposed to be. You put May inside the tackle box, it's a different point of view, and he's not able to kind of be the shot caller for the defense like he did when Jamal was on the team. So even though Davis is no Jamal Adams, I have come impressed with his activity. He's not afraid to, stick his shoulder on somebody. He hasn't been super disruptive in the backfield like Jamal, but hey, 12 tackles or, 11 or 12 tackles, whatever his stat line was this past weekend, definitely shows that he has an ability to find the ball carrier and make a play. So that's definitely helpful. And, as far as what we've seen from effort from our secondary, from consistent play and things like that, developing a little bit of a rapport now and making kind of a name for himself on this defense. And I feel a little bit better about, the Ashton Davis that I'm seeing now than I did a few months ago, because I did have question marks about, how is it going to be effective having two glorified free safeties on the team and somebody that can't come into the tackle box and be disruptive. So a lot of those questions are starting to be answered. I do think that he's still raw, but what I'm seeing right now, there's definitely something that you can build on for the future. And it looks like he could possibly be a foundation piece in the secondary for years to come.
Now, one guy who's not a rookie, but only a second-year guy who was injured most of his first season, so I wanted to discuss him briefly because I wanted to get into the cornerback position a little bit. Bless Austin, now placed on IR for a few weeks with a neck injury. First they said it might be something, then they said it was nothing, then they said they were putting him on IR. So just yet another very strange, weird handling of an injured player. But from what we've seen, if you look at, we're expecting big things from Bryce Hall with, the highly touted guy out of college. He's expected to become a starting corner. What about Bless Austin? I mean, has he done enough where you feel like he might, or has he done enough that he'll warrant consideration as a starter? Or do the Jets have to say, look, we're going to have to use another premium pick on a corner because Bless isn't a guy but we don't view him as a lock to win a starting job.
You want to take this one first, Alex?
No, go right ahead, Dylan.
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, I personally haven't been the biggest Bless Austin fan this season. I know he's been somewhat productive. He has 33 tackles, 2 for a loss. He had the forced fumble week 1 against Josh Allen. And, people were really excited about him taking on a bigger role this year on the outside. And I think that so far he's kind of underwhelmed. And now with this injury thing is kind of, it's a little strange. I mean, I read a Manish report a couple minutes before I called in, and he was just saying that Bless Austin told teammates that this was only going to take a couple days of rest to get back to where he needed to be. And then a couple, within hours or days, he seems to be on the IR, missing 3 of the last 6 games, which, I mean, I think this is huge for his development. I think at this point they don't know what they have in him enough to say, hey, we're solid at the position between him, Bryce Hall, the other random names that we have back there like Guidry, Jackson, Mollett. I think cornerback is going to be a position that this team targets. I think he could still make a name for himself next year if he doesn't come back healthy enough this year to make a name, but personally was not impressed with what I saw so far from him this season.
All right, well, Dylan, thanks so much for tuning in and joining us. This is Jet Nation Radio contributor, Dylan Tereman. He'll be joining us regularly on the show. Have a great night, Dylan.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a safe, happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Thank you. All right, Alex, you there?
I am here.
All right, so that literally brings us into the next thing I wanted to discuss, which is, I brought, excuse me, I did pose the question to Dylan, but I wanted to discuss it with you because and a lot of it had to do with, as I said, the way Quinnen Williams is playing, the way John Franklin Myers is playing. If you're the Jets, let's assume it's safe to say they're going with a quarterback at 1 or 2, wherever they land. From there, with that second first rounder, that Seattle pick, it's always been kind of my mind. I either want a dominant interior lineman because there's rarely an edge rusher there that late in the draft. But keep in mind that was, and I think I mentioned this a couple shows ago. This is when in my mind, Seattle was going to be picking no higher than sort of 30th after the first few weeks of the season when they were setting the world on fire. Now that it looks like you could be picking in the early mid-20s, that's maybe there's an edge rusher there. But if you're the Jets, do you go with an edge guy who you think can be a playmaker, or do you go with a corner? Because I really feel like with Quinnen Williams, with John Franklin Myers, who knows what Huff will become off the edge. I think Terrell Basham is a better player than he gets credit for. I think if you had those guys and you shore up the cornerback position, those guys can start getting a little more pressure on the quarterback. Because, listen, as it is now, these guys are beating the guy across from them, but the quarterback, the ball's coming out so quick because these corners are getting beat. And, I mean, the safeties, too, not as consistently. But do you target a number one corner, or do you target an edge rusher with that first-round pick, with that second first-round pick if you're the Jets? And now, listen, this is a conversation. If there's an all-world dominant, offensive lineman there that you didn't expect to be there, then maybe you just take him. But I'm saying if guys are ranked about similar, you got to choose between a corner who might start for you or an edge who might start for you. What's your priority?
I kind of am thinking about the household that is the Jets, and right now there's cracks and there's leaks in the roof, and the foundation is crumbling, and we're in this sinkhole of 0-10. We don't have a good foundation. And the Jets need to get some pillars on this team. And I think that one of the pillars that we currently have is Mekhi Becton. I think that there's still work to be done at the offensive line, but having a big guy like that definitely helps. When I look at the defensive side, I don't see a big pass rushing edge defender. So would it be easier for Joe Douglas to acquire someone that has been proven in free agency and making your big ticket splash, being an edge defender? Bud Dupree is somebody that came up in conversation I saw on Twitter last week that's supposed to test the market. The draft is a gamble, and I don't care how many ones we have. It's pretty much a 50-50 shot whether or not the guy's going to play out. And in New York, we're always looking to put players in the microwave, nuke them, get them as hot as we possibly can, as quickly as we can, and throw them out on the field and either produce or, get the hell out of here. I'd feel much better with our draft position, building something offensively, not completely negate the defense because there's still a lot of holes on there too. But I think that, maybe getting a big ticket free agent pass rusher and then being open into that draft to possibly, like you said, getting another bookend tackle to solidify the offensive line would be great for the offense. Getting another wide receiver target with that second first-round pick. Now you've got first-round and second-round talent for your future quarterback. If we're talking about a world with Trevor Lawrence being in the mix, what better way to start his, career with having Mims as your number 2 and a possibly number 1 wide receiver option on the back end of that first round. I think that would be a good way to create some foundational pieces in your offense. But, obviously defense wins games, as they say. So, in those day 2 picks, maybe that's where the Jets might want to look for pass rushing depth. We definitely need to continue to get more talent on the defensive backfield side. We just lost Brian Poole, and right now we're going with Arthur Millette, who I believe is one of the UDFAs, and I don't know what his contract is, but my guess is that he's probably not on the 2021 roster or salary for next year. So you're going to be looking to address the nickel cornerback position yet again, and then you have a bunch of question marks with young players on the outside for your corners. And from what we've seen from other teams, the offensive teams are rolling this year. Maybe it's just a bad year for defensive teams all around, because we haven't seen scoring like this in years. So clearly having strong quality outside corner play is vital, to have good chemistry on your team. So I do kind of feel that the Jets need to either prioritize the offseason for a certain side of the ball and then go into the draft possibly looking offensive, looking for offensive talent for the future. That would kind of be maybe my, makeshift plan I would put together in my mind right now. Clearly that'll change as we get closer to April 2021. But yes, foundational pieces are what this team needs, and we don't have any of that going on right now. Still a lot of question marks going on in different areas. So if you can kind of check off the big position player slots, that might help, coming back into 2021 and being a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, I think I like the fact that despite the terrible record, I think from what we've seen from Quinnen Williams and Mekhi Becton, I think those guys are going to be studs. I think Denzel Mims, it's hard to say he will be because it's only a couple games, but everything you saw from him in college made you think he was going to be a stud. And now just the way he's played through those first couple games, you're like, okay, he's going to be a legitimate guy moving forward. So there are probably more pieces at integral parts on this roster that, even no, Quinnen Williams isn't an edge rusher, but look, this guy's got 3.5, 4 sacks. He had back-to-back weeks where he had a quarterback wrapped up, and for whatever reason, they weren't called for grounding. They, dumped the ball off before he pulled him to the ground. I think he's a guy who, from the inside, can be an 8-9 sack a year guy, which isn't all that bad. And I just feel like if you had a corner, and again, I'm not saying you're wrong, Alex. There's a million different ways to go about this. I just look at edge and corner, and I feel like there's enough talent there right now to put pressure on the quarterback. And would a corner help there? And I'm not even saying that's definitely what I would do. It's a thought I had as I was watching the All-22 again today. I saw so many plays where the D-line got pressure, but the ball came out so quick. You just think, damn, if the coverage was a little better, if they were good enough to play a tight man, a tight man scheme where the quarterback can't just get rid of the ball in 1.2 seconds because the guy's already open. When you got guys playing off, you got guys playing zone, they just don't have the personnel to play sort of, get up in a guy's face, play press man, and give your defense a chance to make a play up front. So, we'll see moving forward. But I also think that I think Joe Douglas, and I could be wrong, I think he's going to look to move that second first-round pick to add some picks. I think Joe Douglas is going to want to come out of this draft with, of course, every GM would love to have as many picks as possible. But Joe Douglas is going to be the only GM who probably is going in with a winless team and a whole boatload of expiring contracts. So Joe Douglas needs bodies. So I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Douglas says, how can I come out of it? Right now they're sitting at 9 picks. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Douglas says, how can I maneuver this to get myself 13, 14, 15 picks, even if he, adds more picks for next year's draft. That remains to be seen. Plenty of time to talk about that stuff, but that was sort of a thought that crossed my mind, and I was wondering what your thoughts were. But in terms of guys, and we'll probably cover this more in depth next week, Alex, because the list is long. I want to go over guys who are under contract, whose contracts are expiring, who's worth keeping around. Because look, keep in mind, even though you need more talent, you're not going to go out and get 45 new players this offseason. Like, there are some guys on the roster right now who you may not love, but they'll probably be back next year. But if you had to pick one or two guys, Alex, I think Marcus May and Breshard Perriman, and I actually saw Connor Hughes tweet almost the exact same thing yesterday, keep those guys. When I think of the guys who have 1 year left on their deal, those two guys should be the top priority in terms of who do we try to retain. What do you, and I want to focus on Perriman, though, because, having mentioned him earlier, we talked about his health and how he's had a hard time staying on the field. But if he stays healthy the rest of the way, and I'm not talking about a 5-year, $70 million deal. I'm thinking if you can get Breshard Perriman to come back for, 3 years, $14 million, something in that neighborhood. Hell, if he keeps playing the way he is, you won't get him that cheap. But if he keeps playing well, you try to bring Breshard Perriman back for some continuity. I just see it as the Jets are not a good enough team to let some of their few good players leave. They need as many good players as they can get. Breshard Perriman is starting to look like he is one of them. Do you try to retain him before he hits free agency?
Yeah, he's an interesting player. I think we've had 10 games so far. He's participated in 6 of them. So his eligibility has been 60% of the season so far. If that's going to be the theme with him, kind of only being in 3/4 of the season availability, I'm not willing to spend that kind of money or invest, quality wide receiver money into a player that's only going to be there, maybe 12 games for you or less. I understand that he's been the best wide receiver that we've had in the last 2 games with 3 touchdowns. Let's just kind of look at the history of this guy. He's a streaky player. He's not consistent. And a lot of his success has kind of been on the back half of the second half of the season. So maybe this is his time to shine. But, he could probably prove me wrong and score 2 touchdowns this Sunday. But I don't know at the moment. I saw some people tweeting about this earlier this morning, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm kind of sitting there saying, I don't know. We had Robbie Anderson playing way better than what Perriman has done this year at this point in time of the year last year. And we weren't making deals with Robbie Anderson. We were looking to make trades for Robbie Anderson. So I don't know. If Perriman continues his play and let's say he ends up with another 3 touchdowns before the season's out, and we're looking at a season of 600 plus yards with 6 touchdowns, and he plays 12 games out of this year. If the price is right, sure, I wouldn't mind kicking the tires on him for another year. Investing into him long term, I'm not sure if I'm ready to do that, especially knowing the talent that's going to be available to us in next year's draft, and some of the free agent wide receivers that are also going to be testing the market next year. I just kind of feel like we could do a little bit better. And I know this might seem alarming to some of the listeners right now because it's like, hey, this guy's looked great the last 2 weeks. Yeah, we're looking at 7 receptions for 155 yards and 3 scores. Looks really, really good on paper. But you look at the 4 games before these last 2 weeks, and that's not really the kind of play that you want if we're talking about, Mims being a number 1 and Perriman being a number 2. What we're seeing from Perriman is what you should expect from a number 4 wide receiver, not a number 2 wide receiver.
But I will say, in fairness to Perriman, starting with that Miami game, we have it's kind of similar to what Robbie Anderson. Excuse me, damn cough hasn't gone away. Similar to what we saw with Robbie Anderson in his time as a Jet, we're seeing him get open down the field quite a bit, and Sam Darnold has misfired a few times, and then Joe Flacco. Well, actually, I think it was Flacco in the Miami game too, wasn't it? But we're seeing him get down the field and get behind defenses. And I know his production last year was late in the season, but if you think back to his situation there, Tampa Bay was stacked at wide receiver, and it wasn't until enough guys got hurt that he got on the field, and then all of a sudden he's putting up 85 to 110 yards per game, 5 out of the last 6 weeks of the year. Now we see him miss time this year. He comes back, and he's kind of playing at the same level. I mean, look, he had 60, 70 yards yesterday or 50, whatever it was. If Flacco hits him on that deep ball, that was another 50, 60-yarder. So he's a guy that if the quarterback play is good, he's looking like a guy who's going to be very productive. The main thing, again, with him is injuries. So I think, as I said earlier, these are the 6 most important games of Darnold's career. These 6 games are pretty big for Perriman, too, because if he can stay healthy, he might find himself getting a pretty decent payday. And I don't think I would mind having him on board for another year with Mims and whatever rookie they choose to go with. But that'll do it for us this week on JetNation Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We'll be back next week, and who knows? Maybe this team plays competitively and they piss everybody off and they win a football game. We'll have to stay tuned and find out. But as I said, man, it's right now these last 6 weeks. If Sam Darnold blows everybody's doors off, the Jets are going to have some decisions to make. I think he probably just raises his trade stock and maybe they get a first rounder for him instead of the second that Ian Rappaport speculated on a couple months ago. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Alex, thanks for joining me. And our thanks again to Dylan Tereman of JetNation and JetNation Radio for calling in to join us and talk about the rookies. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at JetNation Radio. Glenn is at AceFan23 and Alex is at NYJetsLife24.
Until next time,
go Jets!